So let's have a close-up look at this Shelly 2.5. You can see here the voltages that it accepts, quite a wide range of AC and DC voltages, and it's got two channels, two relay channels. When I cracked it open to have a look inside, I noticed it's got this little nifty Wi-Fi antenna, which is just a sticker that's stuck to the top side of the case. It's got a little cable that comes around and plugs into the back here, and you can see it's running on an ESP8266, which is just here. It's got the memory for the ESP8266, and I believe that would be a power monitoring chip, as it has two channels of power monitoring, one for each channel, and the power monitoring works quite well. I've tried it out, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. It's got the two input switches here. Now these input switches can take 240 volts in. I'm not entirely sure how it gets to the TPIO pins, but it goes through a 47k resistor and a diode, and it must have some capacitors that smooth it out. And then before it goes into the ESP8266, it's very small though, very compact. In fact, the whole board is very small and compact and well designed, and it does look like a quite good quality from my point of view. It has a transformerless power supply, so I'm assuming that's why they can do that, possibly take it straight into the ESP826 without any opto-couplers, because it's running on the same, it's got the non-isolated power supply. It has the same common connected to the ground and also to the neutral of the 240 volt. I'm not entirely sure how that works, but I suspect that it has something to do with that, why it works okay, feeding the wires into the processor. You'll see here that this is the power supply, transformerless. It's very small, 1.4 watts. It's got a fusible resistor just here. It's got some MOV for protection just there. It's got two inductors and some capacitors, and it's just underneath there, it's just got the IC that controls the switching for the power supply. And then it's got the two relays here. Now these relays are the smallest ones I've seen for sale that you can buy for a 10 amp relay. Very compact, 17.5 millimeters that way, 10 millimeters that way, and only 12.5 millimeters high. So very small and compact, and they've mounted them sideways to give it that nice slim profile, which makes it very easy to install inside a light switch box. And that's coming from an electrician's point of view, so I found this device very easy to install. So that's the Shelly 2, quite a well designed product, I think. Now I've got one of these set up already with Mqtt, and and another one that I'm just going to set up now, and I'm going to use the factory firmware. I'm not going to reflash it. It does have headers here, which I believe are to reflash this with perhaps something like ESP Home. And I've decided that I'm not going to use that at this point. I'm just going to stick with the factory firmware, which has worked okay on the first one that I installed. Very easy, pretty simple and straightforward. And if the Raspberry Pi ever gets taken offline or disconnected, the switch will still do its job. The lights will still turn on and off with the light switch, so it sort of does its own thing. So that's what we're going to go over to Home Assistant now, and we'll check out the setup for connecting out one of these with Mqtt on Home Assistant. So we're just going to have a quick look at the way to set up these Shelly 2.5s with Mqtt on Home Assistant. You can see here that I've set up my Shelly 2.5 on my network, and it's got an IP address which I've browsed to. This is the user interface on the Shelly. If we have a look at first how to set up Mqtt, it's just here on the main page on Internet and Security. Come down to Advanced Settings, and we can enable Mqtt. We set up our username and password and our server, which I'm running on my Raspberry Pi, which is running my Mqtt broker, and then we save that. Next, we can come across to Home Assistant, and we've got to set up three items. The first one is in switch, the switch setting, and so we've got the one we're doing here, which is the washing line floodlight and the washing line sensor. So they're the two relay outputs. One turns on the flood, one turns on the wall lights. and that's the settings for them there in our switch. You'll notice here that all the Shellys have a very similar topic here. Shelly switch 2.5. And the last 6 digits here is the MAC address of the device, and then the relay number 0 and 1. So once we set that up, we can go across to binary sensor. Now the binary sensor is the input into the Shelly. So the actual physical wall switch, or in my case, one of them is the wall switch and one is the exterior motion sensor, which puts an input in. And I've got these set up just here. It's these two down here, just here. So I've got the washing line sensor and the floodlight, and a very similar topic here to get to the right input. And once we've got the input set up, we can then set up the sensors for energy monitoring. So they come in under sensors, sensor. And the ones we've just set up here, the Shelly 2.5, each channel has its own power monitoring, which is separate. So we've got the washing line flood, the power, which is instantaneous watts, and the second one is energy, which comes out of the Shelly as watts per minute. And then we've got the same again for the other channel. So they're the two channels, and it's got power and energy that come from the Shelly. So once we set that up, we'll end up with something like this as entities in our Home Assistant. So that's all from the Shelly 2.5 we've set up for the washing line, the two switches. We can see we've got the binary sensors here, and we've got the energy usage here, and we have the relay outputs here. So you will notice if we have a look here, we've got the floodlight relay is on. If we turn that off, and we can then go and switch the physical switch, you'll see that the binary sensor comes on and the floodlight relay will come on. The binary sensor is on and the relay came on as well. If we come back across to the Shelly, we can actually change that setup. If we go into the channel, the first channel, we can come in here and there's two, under settings, we can come to button type, and there's momentary switch. There's toggle switch is what we're using at the moment. So one state is always on and one state is always off, and the rest are pretty self-explanatory. The detach switch here, if we select that, it'll save it. That way the physical switch won't operate the relay when it's operated. It has to be done through the Home Assistant through an automation. So if we come back to Home Assistant, and we'll see that the binary sensor is on, the physical switch, and the relay is on. If I go and operate the switch, it now won't do anything because it's detached. So that now it's in detached mode. They operate independently of each other. So that's the basic setup of the Shelly. You can also see here on the other settings on power on, I've got it set to off, so that if we lose power it defaults to off. You can have a default to on or have it restore the last mode. I prefer to set mine to off so that if the power goes off it doesn't come back on again. That's how I usually set it, but it's up to you what you need. But they're all the choices. That pretty much covers everything you could possibly want in any scenario. If this video was helpful, hit the like button, and if you want to subscribe for more videos like this one.